Hey, I'm Dr. Paul with Move Toward Wellness. I hope you're having a great summer. I wanted to share a story with you that got kind of passed over in the media. They didn't give it the attention that I feel it deserved. And after talking to patients over the last few weeks or a couple weeks, I realized that a lot of people didn't hear the information, or if they heard it, they didn't realize the bigness of the story. GlaxoSmithKline, huge pharmaceutical company, recently paid $3 billion in a settlement for committing healthcare fraud. It was the largest healthcare fraud case in U.S. history, and how this didn't get on the front page of every newspaper and in the media, I know why, but you have to understand why this is so important. They were found guilty of pushing drugs for things they weren't tested for. They weren't tested to be safe for. The other thing they were found guilty of is bribing doctors, doing things to promote their medications and influencing doctors in a way that was not only inappropriate but illegal. So this is huge, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a couple reasons. The three drugs that were involved were Paxil, Wellbutrin, and Avandia, and most people have heard of those drugs because they're marketed so heavily. But one of the things they did with Paxil was that they tried to push it for kids. It was never studied, actually it was never proven to be effective for kids, yet they pushed it as if it was. And the problem is that in the 1990s they ran studies and not a single study showed it to be effective. So every study showed that it failed to be effective for kids, yet they still pushed it. And not only did it not help, but it had devastating effects and adverse effects on a lot of these kids. So that's a major issue. When it came to Wellbutrin, what happened was they wanted to push it to make it seem better than competing drugs. They started to tell doctors that it would help with weight loss and improve sex drive. And they actually hired a PR firm to create a buzz and about it being this super pill to not only help with depression but to boost sex drive and help with weight loss. And they knew that that would help their sales. They also gave doctors incentives such as vacations and hunting trips and tickets to Madonna concerts, and you just can't do that because it influences these doctors to prescribe in ways that they otherwise wouldn't. When it came to Avandia, the trouble with Avandia was that they didn't disclose or report the safety data to the FDA that they should have. They knew it was causing problems. They knew it was it had been linked to about 83,000 heart attacks, yet that was never disclosed. And so here's the biggest part of all this stuff. First of all, they got fined. They got fined $3 billion, which sounds like a lot of money. But in the years covered by this settlement, I think it was Avandia, they made about $10 billion, Wellbutrin about $6 billion, and Paxil, I think they made about $11 billion. So if you add it up, it's probably around $29 billion. So $3 billion is not a big deal. So it's kind of become business as usual, or part of their business model that, hey, we're going to have to pay fines or we're going to get busted, but what's the big deal if we're making all this money? If you give me $28 and I have to give you $3 back, I'd be a fool not to do that. So the business model makes it so that the $3 billion isn't a big deal. So until somebody has to start being accountable criminally, it's not going to change. I mean, somebody has to be held accountable. If somebody in my family was given a medication based on information that was known to be false and they had a heart attack and died, they don't need to be fined. They need to be charged with murder. I mean, that's a very serious issue, especially when it comes to kids. So you've got to be really careful because pharmaceutical companies are huge. They have tons of money. It's about profit. It's a profit-driven company, and you can be profit-driven, and that's okay. But when you're profit-driven at the expense of the well-being of people, then you've got big problems, and it happens over and over again. And I think it was there was a 10-year period. They had the 100 biggest corporate criminals, and 20% of them were pharmaceutical companies. And back in 2009, Pfizer paid $2.6 billion in settlements for doing the same kind of a thing, pushing drugs for things they weren't designed for, and for promoting drugs with doctors or influencing doctors in ways they shouldn't. When I was going to school 20 years ago in Iowa, pharmaceutical companies were found guilty of giving doctors cars and vacations and prostitutes. It was crazy. And they'll say they've kind of changed it and they're changing their ways, but if you believe that, it's crazy. It is changing, but it's still happening. I recently called the doctor. We share some patients, and I figured we'd get to lunch and discuss these patients. I called over there. Their office manager said that she doesn't go to lunch because the pharmaceutical companies have lunch catered in every single day. Now, if you ask your doctor where they get their information on medications, they're going to tell you that they get it from peer-reviewed journals and articles and studies. And studies have shown that that's just not the case. They get their information from the drug reps and the drug companies. And now we've known for a long time that the drug companies blatantly lie. And they do it, they've been found guilty, they've been fined for it. So you can't. So it doesn't matter how good your doctor is, how big-hearted, well-meaning, and well-intentioned they are. It doesn't matter if the information that they're getting is false. And that's what's happening. They're giving you the information, and then you don't find out till later that the information they gave you was bad until somebody has some awful side effects or people are dying, and it happens over and over and over again. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it's so big. And the other thing really you have to keep in mind is these same drug companies are making a lot of the vaccines. They're pushing vaccines like crazy, and they're increasing the number of so-called required vaccines, and they're telling you how safe they are and how there's no side effects and all these things. But these are the same companies that we know have lied. And the only reason that we know that these people this stuff's coming out is because we now have whistleblowers. And what's ironic is that these same whistleblowers really aren't blowing the whistle until they lose their job. When they're in their position making all kinds of money, it seems like everything's okay, I guess. But anyway, I hope you understand the bigness of this because it influences how drugs are promoted, how drugs are pushed. They have tons of money. There's so much marketing behind it. It's all about money. A company recently, OxyContin, you've all heard of OxyContin, majorly addictive drug. They're doing studies to see if they can give it to kids as young as 6 years old. And at first it was ridiculous. I thought that was absolutely crazy. But then I read an article that kind of said it really wasn't about giving this drug to kids. What it did was, if they were doing a study on kids, it kind of gave them an extension on their patent for another 6 months. And that's a big deal because as patents run out, these drug companies get into trouble. So anyway, I hope you understand how important it is to get good information, sound information, truthful information. A pill will never give you the health that you're looking for. Wellness will never come in the form of a pill. It's not easy. It requires effort. It requires an ongoingness. It requires help, and it requires energy, and it requires money. So I'm going to give you as much information as I can. The information I give you, I have no ties to any of the companies that I talk about. So you're going to get good information from me, and I want you to help me to help others. So please share on the site, comment on this, help me to help others by sharing ideas and sharing comments. I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a great summer. I know it's going fast. I'm going to keep giving you information. I just needed to share the story with you because somehow it got passed over without a whole lot of hype. But they got fined $3 billion because they were found guilty of healthcare fraud. That is very, very significant. So anyway, I hope everything's great with you. I look forward to sharing more information with you. Share a comment, post something. I'd appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.